Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today we're going to run a video from an intrepid gentleman, Uncanny Expeditions, where we're going to go on a tour of a hidden city, Mercury. Mercury, which is a vibrant township off Highway 95, which does run north to south, but often goes east-west on its journey north to south or south to north. Anyway, what you should know is that I do think this is a professional video and I recommend Uncanny Expeditions. However, that said, I must state very emphatically that I believe this gentleman is fully augmented. He doesn't seem to understand the world in which he lives. He is able to look at the sky and see helicopters and B-2 bombers and F-117 stealth fighters, but he is clueless as to chemtrails, clueless as to scalar telemetry, doesn't know anything about the scalar fields above his head, doesn't know what aluminum chalk and arsenic looks like, whilst it comes down and violates his breathable air space. Scalar field theory involves invariant classical or quantum theory scalar fields. And this is part of theoretical physics. However, there's nothing theoretical about chemtrail dumpings over your head. Chemtrail dumpings are occurring over the city of Paris, the city of New York, the city of Milan, city of Florence and Tuscany, all over San Francisco, Greater Bay Area, 100% over Sacramento too, Los Angeles, Topanga Canyon, San Fernando Valley, Santa Cruz, San Diego, Carmel, Monterey, by the sea, Pebble Beach, all subjected to scalar fields of MIMS and MIMOs, also known as mesogens, better known as smart dust, Joey Weiss and Christopher Pister. And this is where CRISPR Therapeutics runs their human augmentation, is off of all of this. That said, there are very few people that live in the Mojave Desert or Death Valley or the Nevada Southern Deserts, but they're doing maximum dosages of this. Now listen, I was aware of this back in 2019, 2020 when I did 2 bicycle events where I rode around Joshua Tree National Park. I've ridden 100% around the perimeter and didn't enter the park when it was closed and I wasn't given a permit. It was closed to cyclists. And that distance is 200 miles in circumference. And there were chemtrail dumpings going on while I did the ride. Now, they were very few of them. I would say I saw maybe no more than a dozen in 12-hour day. You know, it took me 13 hours to ride around that park. I think I did it in 12 hours and 10 minutes, something like that. It was under 13 hours. Then the next year I came back and I was allowed a permit to enter the park, did the park with its machinations within the park, and you would think that I had cut off some of the mileage, but in fact it turned out to be within a mile and a half of the 200 miles. So it was 201 and a half miles when I went through the park, but there was a dead-end cul-de-sac that I was directed to for an overlook where you could see the Palm Desert. And you know, today the Palm Desert and Palm Springs and Indian Springs area of California is fully augmented with the scalar chemtrails. And this gentleman doesn't seem to see them. He's blind as a bat. Anyway, that said, the rest of the video is extremely educational and instructive, so do enjoy it. Just know that I don't give this guy an A. If he was taking my class, I'd have to flunk him because he doesn't ever look at the sky. And I'm an expert on the sky. I've spent most of my life staring at the sky. I'm very familiar with the sky, and I don't understand how people who hike outdoors and breathe in polluted air cannot understand they're in a cesspool of arsenic poison. All right, that said, do enjoy the video with me.
Out in the Mojave Desert, about 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas, sits the town of Mercury. Looking at a map, there's nothing particularly remarkable about Mercury. It has a post office, a sheriff's office, a hospital, housing, etc. But what's unique about this town is that the general public is completely forbidden from entering it. If you try to exit the highway, you'll be immediately greeted by no trespassing and authorized personnel only signs. In fact, the town sits entirely within the boundary of the heavily guarded and restricted Nevada National Security Site. Mercury was born in the early 1950s, during the height of the Cold War, when the US government needed a central hub to support the nation's nuclear weapons testing program. What began as a small military encampment quickly grew into a bustling mini-city. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel lived and worked here, developing and testing some of the most powerful weapons ever built. At its peak, Mercury had thousands of residents. There were dormitories, a bowling alley, a movie theater, a swimming pool, even a chapel. It was a fully functioning community, but one surrounded by miles and miles of restricted desert and the echoes of atomic detonations. Think of it like a company town, but for America's top secret atomic energy projects. As the era of above-ground nuclear testing ended in 1962, Mercury's role shifted. Underground testing continued until 1992, when the United States officially entered a moratorium on nuclear explosions. Since then, Mercury didn't become a ghost town. It's become a secure operations base for national security and scientific research. Today, the Nevada National Security Site and the town of Mercury within it are managed by the Department of Energy. The area supports activities related to nuclear stockpile stewardship, emergency response training, and high security experiments, some of which may never be declassified. Though much quieter than in its heyday, the town still operates as a logistical center, a place for scientists, contractors, and federal personnel to work and stay while carrying out classified missions deep within the Nevada desert. Today I'll be taking you on a long and somewhat treacherous trek through the desert to get a much closer view of this secret town than you would ordinarily get from the highway. Today's climb will require traversing over 14 miles of terrain round trip and will give us not only a view of Mercury, but also deep into the Nevada National Security Site, where we'll be able to see places that aren't viewable from any other public location. So I spent the night in my little RAV4 micro camper last night out here in the desert, just mainly so I could get an early start this morning. It was pretty cold last night, so I'm hoping the hike will be a pretty moderate temperature. The guy who originally charted this area, Glenn Campbell, he's one of the OG Area 51 explorers. He, on his original trips, I think it was back in 1995, he described almost running out of water out here, and he kind of basically made the hike sound pretty hellish and that he almost died. So I definitely am going to be taking it, I am definitely going to be playing it pretty safe. I'm packing a ton of water, and I'm doing this hike at a time of year where hopefully the temperatures will be moderate enough. It's, you know, getting into mid-November here, so I think we should be pretty good in that department. I am going to be packing pretty light as far as camera gear. I am definitely going to be bringing my P1000, and rather than the PVS-14 today, I'm going to be bringing my new AGM Sidewinder thermal camera. This is the TM50-640, meaning it has a 50mm lens instead of a 35mm lens. So for aircraft spotting and stuff like that, it gets you a little bit more reach. Not going to be a huge difference, but I wanted to spring for that extra reach. So I'm excited to try this thing out. I think it should be pretty fun to have with us on this trip. Got my Nemo Hornet Osmo tent here too. This thing's super nice and lightweight. That should stuff down in my backpack pretty easily. Other than the water, that's going to be about all I'm bringing. I'm going to just try and bring my little mini tripod instead of my full-size one, because I'm really trying to save on weight. So we'll see how this goes. So the light blue line here is an approximation roughly of the route that I'm going to take on this hike. The dark blue line is the boundary that I don't want to cross, and all the yellow is public land. I'm going to be cutting it pretty close to the boundary, so I got to be careful. Ready to head out here. I shed a layer because the sun's coming out from behind the clouds now and it's starting to warm up. I got my backpack ready to go. What I do have to do is cross to the other side of the highway there, so I can either jump over that railing, or I think the more preferable option is to head down to that culvert over there, which which crosses to the other side. And hopefully there's no obstructions in the way, and I'll be able to get to the fence line that I need to cross. I'm going to have to be somewhat cautious on this hike because I'm basically going to be straddling the perimeter of the Nevada National Security Site restricted zone. So I'm hoping there's going to be signs that can kind of guide me. According to Glenn Campbell's original trip report, there should be. So unless this has changed in the last couple decades, I should be okay following the signs to stay on public land. But we'll kind of play it by ear and see what happens here. I'm coming up on this culvert here, so I'm gonna climb through this and see what we find on the other side here. So yeah, ideally this viewpoint is going to give me a pretty incredible view of the Nevada National Security Site. So we're going to be able to see down into the restricted town of Mercury, and also places like Frenchman Flat, which normally you'd only be able to see that if you took the tour of the National Security Site, and the tour doesn't allow you to bring cameras. So this is basically going to be the only way to get clear photo and video of it. So yeah, I've gone through the first part of the culvert here. Now we're going to cross to the other side. What's this, a locked gate on my public lands? That's no good. Now, who put this here? Oh, the Department of Energy did. It's a bit rude. Well, I'm gonna wait for a minute when it doesn't look like there's any traffic on the road there, and I'm gonna hop over this thing. Alright, so I've made it over the fence. And that padlock is illegally put there. They don't have the authority to lock it, so it is what it is. If somebody has a problem with that, I'm pretty confident that I'm on the right side of the law here. So basically I'm going to follow these power lines here for a little bit, and we're going to slowly approach the perimeter of the restricted zone. And then once I hit the perimeter, I'm going to follow it up to that, can make it out up there. There's like a comm site on top of that hill. That comm site is on public land. I'm not going to go right up to the site because I don't want to draw that much attention right now. I'd rather make it to my destination, but we will get pretty close to it up here. Oh, hey there, buddy. It's always nice to have the Reaper drones to remind you that you're never truly alone out here, right? I'm sure he's got some nice high quality thermal footage of me scaling that gate back there. Luckily, Glenn left a description of his climb on Summit Post, the website. He did his climbs in 1995, and I think there may have been one or two more attempts in the late 90s or very early 2000s, but I don't think there's been anybody climbing this area since then. I'm definitely the first person to video it like this. Well, I couldn't see any no trespassing signs from here yet, so I'm just going to keep on keeping on. I'm giving the perimeter line on my map a pretty wide berth as I'm hiking, so hopefully this will prevent any accidental perimeter crossings, because I really would rather not get a trespassing charge.
I'd be more concerned about breathing aluminum, lithium, strontium, and arsenic poison than I would about getting a citation by the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department.
A little bit closer. So I should be approaching the base of that hill if I continue on a straight line from my current path. It's definitely starting to heat up. I'm glad I shed that layer.
In vacation.
Alright, so I'm getting ready to make my final ascent up that mountain right in front of me. But overall, this has been probably one of the most remote stretches of desert that I've ever explored, especially for being so relatively close to Vegas. I think it's mainly because there's really no reason for anybody to come out here unless you're doing what I do. If you look at it from the highway, it looks like it'd be restricted because you have that locked gate and barbed wire fence. But as the maps have shown, it's public land. Now let's take a look directly to my west into the town of Mercury. Here we have what look like dormitories or residential buildings, along with quite a few official vehicles. It's funny, one of these buildings somewhere in here contains a post office with the P.O. box that's actually used by Area 51 on official documents. I believe it's P.O. Box 528, Mercury, Nevada. So if you want to send Area 51 a postcard, write that down. Quite a few of the classic white pickups that service various parts of the NNSS and NTTR. Maintenance trucks, bucket trucks, things like that. A lot of scrap metal piled up over there too. Not sure what that's from. And over here we have a truck that presumably contains radiation detectors. Hence the label. This is the airstrip south of town, operated by the Department of Energy. It's located on the site of the former Camp Desert Rock, which was an army camp made to support nuclear testing back in the day. There's a white bus down in the corner. A couple employee vehicles arriving. A lot of vehicles you'll see come through here and then proceed north into other parts of the NNSS or NTTR, such as Area 51. In fact, the highway that goes north of Mercury, you'll see trucks delivering supplies to Area 51 from this route. They go up to a gate called Gate 700. Of course, you'll also have employees arriving that work at other parts of the NTTR. There's a large white bus heading south from Mercury towards the freeway. It's different than the typical Bluebird buses that you see by Area 51. I believe these ones here are operated on behalf of the Department of Energy, whereas the Bluebird ones are for the Air Force. At least that's my understanding. Could be a security truck there, kind of driving around the perimeter of the town. So far, no one's really paid me much mind. I guess I'm far enough away. I'm sure they know where I am. A couple vehicles just coming south from deeper into the NNSS. Could have been coming either from the Frenchman Flat area or maybe the Lockheed Area 6. It's hard to say. As I was panning around, I noticed a couple abandoned little shacks directly below me on this ridge. They're very close to the perimeter, so I'm not sure if they're actually on public land or in the restricted zone. But I'm gonna go check them out, against my better judgment. See if I can make it down this ridge here. I've been checking my map pretty frequently just to confirm, but I am still indeed on public land. But the weird thing is this road that I'm on, it goes into Mercury, so the only way to access this little pocket officially is from inside the base. Yeah, I wonder what these things were. They almost look like I'm kind of debating between either an old mining camp or maybe some old buildings from the original facility. They kind of look like old guard shacks. Wow. They're pretty destroyed, whatever they are. And they have electrical. Huh. Looks like over the years, some people from Mercury have come out here for target practice. It couldn't be anybody else really, because like I said, the road down there just goes right into Mercury. There's no other way to drive to this place. I should stealth camp in here sometime. That'd be kind of funny, huh? Probably end up with hantavirus though. And because I'm sure some folks will be curious, I haven't noticed any abnormal radiation levels in this area, although I'm sure there are some spikes if you go into the NNSS further. Out here by Mercury, it seems pretty safe.
Safe radiation levels. So says the man that isn't concerned about the chemtrail smart dust above his head and throughout his breathable air space. I don't think I would take this guy as a safety technical assistant anywhere.
Oh look, my Reaper friend is back. I thought I heard something up there in the clouds. Everybody wave hi to the MQ-9. I assume these are probably taken off from Creech, AFB. One awesome thing that I noticed about this spot is that it puts me basically right under the flight path for the Janets as they approach Groom Lake. So if you like spotting Janets, this is a great place to do it from. Before the sun goes down, let's take a look over yonder, deeper into the Nevada National Security Site. There you can see the road that heads north out of Mercury. You can make out a few cars down there making their way up into the test site. And over that mountain range there is Area 6. Lockheed Martin operates a highly classified facility in Area 6. If you look on satellite view, you can see an airstrip with a number of hangars. Unfortunately, from this vantage point, I can't quite see the airstrip. I have yet to find a public land section that really has a good view of it. I suppose that's why they chose it, because it's very hard to see. You can see the airspace though, so if they were doing a test flight, you might be able to make out a tiny dot of some sort of aircraft taking off. Here we have the Frenchman Flat Nuclear Test Site, also known as Area 5. This is where, in 1951, Operation Ranger was conducted. This was the first series of tests to be carried out at the Nevada test site. The bombs were dropped from B-50 bombers and exploded in the open air directly over Frenchman Flat. Today you can still see some infrastructure present. Actually made the 7 mile return hike for a grand total of 14 miles of hiking on this trip. It was honestly pretty brutal. I will say it about lined up with how the trip reports made it sound. I definitely would not want to do this hike in the summer, and I wouldn't recommend any of you try it necessarily unless you are prepared for some pretty rough terrain. I'll throw up a map here so I can show you guys kind of where I was and what I could see from my vantage point. Some mapping apps that I have call this place Mercury Ridge. I'm going to call it Mount Curry or Mount Curie. That's what Glenn called it, and he was the original explorer of this area, and I definitely honor his legacy. So unfortunately, I couldn't really see much as far as aircraft activity. We just had the Janets and the Reaper drones making flybys occasionally. But potentially, if there was a test flight out of the Lockheed Martin Area 6 airstrip, you would get a good view of the airspace over the strip. So you could maybe see the faint outline or a small dot, depending on what kind of optics you're looking through. For those of you who want a little bit more high-res, close-up view of the town of Mercury, I'll throw up a panoramic image that I took on my website. It should go live at the same time as this video, so head over there and check that out if you want to see it. All in all, I'm very glad I did this hike. I got to see Bald Mountain. I could see the Papoose Mountain range. Couldn't see Papoose Lake, but again, I could see the airspace above it. So I think it was a pretty cool trip. Again, not one that I'm going to do super often, but it will be in the rotation every now and then. Thanks so much for coming along on this trek. I'll see you guys.
I hope you enjoyed this video. It's uncanny to me that our host doesn't notice the polluted skies. I find Uncanny Expeditions to be gobsmackingly clueless when it comes to the troposphere, the breathable air space, scalar, telephotometry, and quantum physics. Doesn't seem to get a clue that we're on 7G technology equipment and 6G terahertz. Doesn't seem to understand human augmentation. Perhaps because this gentleman has been fully augmented himself. All right, do like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. Bye now.